I'm Russ Muirhead. I'm a contributor to this volume, Afghan Endgames, just out from Georgetown University Press. Hi, Rothstein, one of the editors of this great volume, and we just finished briefing a number of generals and other high-level policymakers in the U.S. military on the key contributions of this book. So let's turn to that. If we had to distill this book in just a couple sentences and say, what's the key, as they say, takeaway? What do you think we should point to?
Well, I think there are two key takeaways. One involves how you prepare for war, and the second one is what to do with the case of Afghanistan right now. On the preparation side, I think a thorough understanding of the political geography is necessary to even develop a viable strategy. And we did not do the studying and preparation necessary to wage war in Afghanistan in a way that would ultimately lead to some degree of stability that would be satisfactory to the United States and to the region.
And that's our retrospective, looking back.
That's correct.
We just didn't prepare. Does that have any consequence for the way we think about what to do now? Does the fact that we were unprepared 11 years ago make a difference now? Or is it just too late to make up the ground that we should have covered?
No, it's not too late. I think one lesson is to do your homework very, very well before you embark on war. And if you are forced to embark on war sooner than you would like to, make sure that you continually make assessments and adjust strategies based on what you know as you're pursuing war. But even at this late stage in the war, there are things to consider. There are options. And the array of options are really quite broad, and I think we need to re-look at those options in policy terms, and then look at the strategies that may be necessary to achieve any one of those political options, and then based on circumstances, select one of those options. The option we seem to have selected at this point is one that really is not sustainable, specifically trying to develop an Afghan central government that is relatively democratic and controls the periphery and is self-sustaining.
So that's the goal. Still, right now, the United States is committed to a central government in Afghanistan that's relatively accountable and controls the entire territory.
I think that is still the goal, although I think we've backpedaled a little bit from that, recognizing that may be more than we're willing to pay for in terms of blood and treasure.
And what's another possibility? If not that, what would be another way of imagining what a successful resolution in Afghanistan might look like?
The first couple of chapters of the book, look at Afghanistan historically and look at what has resulted in stability in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan has historically been stable when control exists predominantly at the local level, and the government in Kabul is relatively weak. So local governance, local control has always been key to stability in Afghanistan. Local control and local stability is also something that's viewed as very legitimate by the population. Control from the center, and especially control by people who are elected through a democratic process, is not really legitimate in the eyes of most Afghan people. Legitimacy comes through dynastic and religious sources, not through elections at this point.
That's a fundamental insight into Afghan political culture that Americans that all of us in a way are likely not to have an immediate appreciation of. Elections are not what produce legitimacy, but
Yeah, I think that's true. Now, that doesn't mean that elections can't be something that are very useful, as Afghanistan moves forward. But I think we tried too early to create a state in our own image, and in doing so, we created a central government that we wanted to be very powerful. That was, in fact, not only viewed as illegitimate, it demonstrated its illegitimacy in the most recent fraudulent elections, and in the rampant corruption that exists within the Karzai government. So they really undermine their own ability to govern, even without the issue of democratic elections.
One risk, I guess, that this image of Afghan political stability invites, this image being a weak central government, strong local governments, a lot of decentralized power to the periphery. The one risk is that the Taliban is going to control large swaths of territory under this local rule scenario. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure if they...
Don't we need a strong central government to rout the Taliban and keep them out of Afghanistan?
Well, that's the conventional wisdom, but the strong central government and the present one that's illegitimate is actually fueling the insurgency. The fact that the central government cannot deliver services to the periphery really is a call to arms for the Taliban. It also, again, upsets where control traditionally has resided, and that's at a local level. So it's really done more to fuel the insurgency than to tamp down on the insurgency.
So in an unintuitive way, the strategy to defeat the Taliban might not be the one that takes them on most directly. It might be the one that devolves a lot of control to local governments where they would seem to be vulnerable to Taliban.
Well, vulnerable maybe, but I mean, the Taliban are Afghans. They come from the villages that we're purporting to try to support. Many villages have made accommodations with the Taliban, and they're fine with the Taliban. If that's the local arrangement that people are comfortable with, we shouldn't try to upset that local arrangement that would be stable. And I think the Taliban has also matured since 2001. Even their own newly published code of conduct allows for much more than their old code of conduct allowed for. They, at least on paper, have become more moderate. Now, whether or not they would be more moderate if they did come to power, nobody knows. But the rhetoric in a lot of this is just strategic communication is one of a much more moderate Taliban, much different than the Taliban of 2000.